Hey, welcome to the channel. My name is Brendan. Today we're going to be discussing my decision to attend Flatiron School. Perhaps you're in a similar situation that I was in not too long ago, and we're going to discuss the difference between some of the boot camps that I evaluated, as well as the interaction design program that I was looking at. Let's dive into the video. Before we dive into this video, I want to give some personal background about myself because the context is a little different for me than it might be for somebody else. First off, yes, I'm a Flatiron School student, but no, I am not affiliated with them in any way. Another important thing to note is regardless of whether I was going to be attending at Flatiron or somewhere else, I was planning on doing this YouTube channel. Another thing to note is I don't have a degree. I've been in and out of college for the past 6 years or so, and the reason I was not finishing a degree out is because I wanted to make sure I was going to use it after I graduated, and since I wasn't going to take out any debt and I was going to pay for it out of pocket, I wanted to make sure it was valuable for me in my future. And I will say that everyone around me does have degrees. My parents have degrees, they both graduated with bachelors. My wife has a degree, she's pursuing her master's. Her parents have degrees, all of my friends have degrees, my coworkers have degrees. So I'm one of the few people, actually I'm the anomaly in my situation that doesn't have a degree. And when I found Santa Monica College interaction design program, that was fully what I expected to be doing for the next few years. I wanted to finish my degree there because I knew that I would have an edge in UX design. Not a lot of people have degrees in the field. Another thing I didn't touch on in the last video is that I'm actually in sales right now. So I'm in a strategic sales business development role at the SaaS company I work for. So I'm actually doing some UX work there. However, I haven't fully transitioned over the past year and a half. I've been doing UX work, and that's my goal through the program, through Flatiron, is to transition into the career, which is why I wanted to join a boot camp. And doing it on my own, I just felt like I wasn't going to be able to learn at a speed that I was comfortable with as far as trying to transition into UX full-time starting next year sometime. So with all that said, let's talk about some of the options that I had on the table and tell you about my research. So let me start by saying, after spending, like I said, about a year and a half doing my own research, I knew that there was a lot of different ways you can break into UX and that there wasn't one way that people were looking for as far as degree or boot camp or self-taught. So I knew I had all my options available to me. I spent a lot of time on Glassdoor, on LinkedIn jobs, and multiple other job postings, looking at the educational backgrounds, the requirements at least that is, and the experience requirements. I wanted to see what the field was looking for, and what I found is that the majority of them actually didn't expect you to have a degree in the field. Sometimes you would need to have a degree, but they wouldn't necessarily expect it to be design related. So with that said, I knew that it wasn't going to be something I had to do, but it would definitely help me stand out. Additionally, I was looking at bachelor's programs both here in Los Angeles and online, just depending on what was out there, and I wanted to see if there might be a UX design, interaction design, or some related program. And it wasn't until about 3 or 4 months in that I actually found the Santa Monica College one. The only reason it was so difficult to find it is because Santa Monica College is technically a community college, and they offered one pilot program that was voted on by the state, it sounds like. So when they chose to go with this program, I was really excited to find out more information about it. And as a side note, I know that it's a hot topic on whether you should have a degree to be in UX. I'm not going to answer this question because that would take too long, but I will refer you to a video in the description that Mike Locke put out, whether you need a degree or not. He's someone who doesn't have a degree. He's been working in Fortune 500 companies. He's a self-taught designer, and I think that he has a lot to share about this space. So I'm going to refer you to that video. So let's discuss the Santa Monica College program. First off, it is actually a pilot program, and what that simply means is that they aren't going to be offering it long-term at this point. It's going to be something that they're testing out. It's going to be out till 2025. The final class is till 2023. With that said, not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing when it comes to getting employed, because it may no longer exist by the time you're looking for a job or future down the road. So that was just something that it's a positive in that it's available, but it's a negative in that it may not be around for long. The reason that this program was so attractive to me, however, was that it was only $10,000. The majority of other colleges in the area, whether it's Otis or Art Center, are very expensive, and even the ones online were extremely expensive. I had no issue as far as going to school online, but for the price, I wanted to make sure that I was getting a good return on my investment, and that the time it was going to take to get the degree would allow me to still work throughout the program and ultimately get a good job after the program, of course. The one thing I will say though is I knew that I was going to have to take additional units in order to be able to apply to the program. I found out that I needed to take 15 additional units just to apply to get into the bachelor section, because I needed to finish the AA requirements, only because I had been in and out of school and some of the credits that I had didn't officially transfer over. So I knew that there was going to be about a year or so of taking those 15 units part-time, and then I would have to apply and get into the program. When I found out about the program, it was just before fall, so I wasn't able to talk to a counselor. That wasn't an issue for me. I knew that I needed to just sign up for some classes, and then I can talk to a counselor, find out where I stand. It wasn't until that point that I actually found out how many units I was going to need to take, but then I also found out that the program itself, this bachelor's program, was essentially you had to be in a cohort and you would have to take classes, 5 classes full-time for 2 years, which meant it was going to be very challenging for me to take a full course load, 15 units, and work full-time, especially if I wanted to do the work that I want to go into as far as UX. It would have been really challenging for me to break into the field. And so I had to really think about what my options were at that point, and that's when I started to think about, well, what are the other things out there? UX boot camps were something I kind of knew about, but now it was time to really think about those options. So with that said, I spent time, about 3 weeks or so, going online looking at different UX boot camps. I used 3 different sources, Google being the first, of course. Then I used SwitchUp, which is a way you could see reviews on there essentially, and it was a way to filter through it, as well as Course Report. All of them were great options, and I looked at, there was like 70 or 80 different UX boot camps out there, but I wanted to make sure I filtered it down to a good list. So let's talk about how I researched these specific UX boot camps and what I was looking for. So I knew that I was going to have to do the program part-time. I knew that there was an option to do it in person. There wasn't many though. One of them was General Assembly, and from what I had seen online, the General Assembly curriculum part-time was different than the full-time program, and quite frankly, it just didn't seem to be as good. So that was kind of a ruled out option for me. The other thing is General Assembly is a very short program, and I wanted something that might have taken a little longer, so I looked at a lot of the different online programs that were out there. So there was 8 boot camps that stood out to me online. First, of course, was Flatiron School. I looked at Lambda School, I looked at Block, I looked at Design Lab, I looked at Thinkful, I looked at Springboard, I looked at Career Foundry, and I looked at BrainStation. The challenge in evaluating these courses was that the reviews for the majority of them were all 4.5 stars, 5 stars. They were all really high rated. So I needed to create some sort of a criteria for myself to judge out each of these. I wrote it down here, so I'm going to look at it. I wrote the instructor quality, the curriculum, program length, mentorship, design critique, portfolio building, collaboration with classmates, and job placement. Those are the criteria that I looked for. Now you may have your own criteria as far as trying to pick a program, but in the future I'm going to be making a video going into more detail about each of these programs. However, for this video I'm just going to share a little bit about each of those programs so you know what I was evaluating and my overall thoughts on it. Now let's take a look at these in reverse order. First, let's start off with BrainStation. I have my notes in front of me, so I'll be looking down for a little bit. So with BrainStation, what I loved is the selection of courses that they offered. If you go on their website, you're going to see they have tons of great programs to choose from. The curriculum looks solid from what I could tell, and the main reason I didn't choose the program is because of the length of the program. It was a little shorter, similar to General Assembly. Now I wanted something that would be more in depth, but I'm looking at the UI and product management courses for something that I might take in the future. So that's BrainStation. Now Career Foundry. There's some similarities between Flatiron and Career Foundry, at least that I found, in the curriculum as well as the job placement. I liked how the flexibility for the course, if you go on the program website, you can see it's about 5 to 10 months for people to finish the program, and you can go at your own pace, which I thought was pretty cool. But there is a downfall to that. With that said, I liked the flexibility to finish the program at your own pace, but there was a few things that made me hesitant to pursue this program. First, there wasn't live instruction, which is something that I wanted. So by doing go at your own pace, you don't necessarily get that live instruction because everyone's on their own pace, of course. Additionally, it lacked the ability to collaborate with others. And of course, this was something that was also on my list. I wanted to make sure that I was working with others, because in the real world, when you're in a design team, you're gonna have to work with others. So that was a skill that, quite frankly, if I wanted to do self-taught, I wasn't gonna be able to get. So if I was gonna join a program, this is something that's critical to me. And lastly, when I signed up for the free email course that they offered, it was just an email sequence, and that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Because if I'm gonna pay thousands of dollars to attend your program, I don't wanna just be thrown in an email sequence and claiming that's a 7-day course. Now, I know that this may be something that they're just testing out, but this was just something that I didn't really find valuable, and immediately made me think, well, maybe is this curriculum gonna be an issue for me down the road? So that was Career Foundry. So now let's talk about Springboard. Springboard was actually the first UX bootcamp that I had heard of. Somehow I must have signed up for their email newsletter, and I was getting a bunch of emails about the admissions process and deadlines that were coming up. So I was like, all right, I'll look into Springboard. So going into Springboard, the content online looked good. The only issue that I had was that you needed 1 year of documented experience to attain to be in the program. So that wasn't an option for me. The curriculum looked great, the price looked great, the teaching looked great, and they had some online resources on YouTube, which I found was really unique and valuable. So as much as I would have loved to pursue it, it just wasn't an option, unfortunately. So that one was out of the mix pretty quickly. Now let's talk about Thinkful. Thinkful was the one program that I looked at, another program I guess I should say, that I looked at briefly. The reason is the curriculum did look great, but I was looking for a UX specific program, and they had a product design program, which is great. If you want to go into product design, I would highly recommend Thinkful, and so that was my 2 cents on Thinkful. Now let's talk about Design Lab. Design Lab on paper had everything that I wanted, except for the fact that I would have to take out a loan. And I didn't want to have to take out a loan for the same reason I wouldn't take out a loan if I were to go to a college. I just don't want to be in debt. Everybody else is seemingly in tuition loans debt, so I didn't want that for myself. If I was going to avoid it in college, why would I take it on in a boot camp? I will say though that it was the most affordable, so if you do have the money up front, then go for it. I would totally recommend going for it, but I just didn't have that option. Now let's talk about Block. This program was one of the ones that stood out to me early because it had been around a while. The curriculum looked good, and like I just mentioned, it's withstood the test of time, so I knew that it was going to be a good program. This one came again down to price. I just didn't want to have to pay it up front, but there are other people that have talked about their experience on Block. I'll share a link to the description of one girl that I've seen. I can't remember her name fully off the top of my head, so I will just put the link in my description about her experience. So this left me with 2 options, Lambda School and Flatiron School. And what I did is I applied to both, and I knew that I was going to have to learn more information as I go through the admissions process, so that's what I did. The reason that I was down to these 2 schools really was because they both offered income share agreements. Basically what an income share agreement is you don't have to pay your money, you don't have to pay tuition up front. Essentially what you're doing is you're agreeing that once you get a job, you're going to pay a percentage of your income over the next couple of years, and that's how they'll recoup their money. And there's tons of debate on whether this is something that people should do personally, but for me, I had no issues with it. So if you have any questions about income share agreements, I'll also put a link into the description of another video that I found helpful about income share agreements. So let's talk about Lambda School versus Flatiron School. Again, I'm going to reference my notes here, so I'll be looking down a little bit. So at first I applied to Lambda School, and honestly, that's where I planned to go. I felt like that was the one that stood out to me the most early on. I liked that they had live instruction multiple times a week. The layout of the program, which you can see actually on YouTube, they have highlighted it for I believe it's their software development program, but it's very similar to what your part-time UX bootcamp was going to look like. And I liked that they had a set structure. So it was Monday through Thursday, 6 to 9 p.m. Pacific time, and Saturday 9 to 12. That was like a flex option. You had a Friday night option and a Sunday night or Sunday morning option. So I thought that was cool. And I just felt like this boot camp would be one that I could actually be successful in. I don't know, there was just something about the program that really stood out to me. The branding was cool. What they were doing on their social media, Twitter, Instagram, I thought it was just like, it spoke to me. Another thing that I liked about them was that they were on the West Coast in San Francisco. So for me being here in Los Angeles, I knew I wouldn't have to do any like calculations as far as, okay, if they're in Central Time, then I have to be here at this time. I wouldn't have to worry about lecture times because I knew exactly when they were going to be. I was going to be off work. There was going to be no issues. So Lambda looked great up front. But there were 4 reasons that it came down to as far as Lambda being counted out against Flatiron School, and the 4 reasons were the following. The first thing was the admissions process. When I went through the Lambda School admissions process, it was fairly straightforward, but it wasn't very interactive. They didn't reach out to me on a personal level. I had to actually ask a question. They got back to me real quickly, but I just didn't feel like there was any real personal connection. You basically filled out a little form essentially, and then you had to send in some videos similar to this. It was like 1-minute clips. I felt like it was fine, but I didn't hear back for quite some time, and just felt like they made it seem like it was hard to get in, but realities, I just didn't feel like they didn't do much to get to know me. So if it was going to be so hard to get in, why not try to get to know me better? Another thing I looked at was the curriculum, and that was the question that I actually had asked. I wanted to see a breakdown of the curriculum and be able to compare it to Flatiron, because I felt like the Flatiron curriculum was great. I'm going to go back to the first video. Flatiron was actually acquired, or Flatiron acquired designation, and designation has been around for 4 or 5 years, I believe, in Chicago, and that curriculum has been withstood the test of time similar to Block. And I knew that the curriculum had the fundamentals of all design, that's interaction, UX, UI, and that was something I knew was valuable. When I looked at the curriculum at Lambda School, I just didn't feel like it was very thorough, just the sheet that I got. And so for that reason, as well as the fact that they did a lot of work on web development, which I didn't feel was very specific to UX design, that was an issue for me a little bit. Another thing was the length of the program. It was 14 to 18 months. If you look on the website, it actually says 18, but I believe the last 4 months were optional just because they were career placement, job placement months. So that's a lot of time. I didn't know fully if that was gonna be something that I was gonna envy down the road. So, and the last thing I guess would be the income share agreement percentage. So for Flatiron, it's 10%. So you're giving up 10% of your income for 4 years roughly. Once you make those payments, there's a grace period. Please do check out the website for Flatiron School. I'll leave it in the description. For Lambda, it's only 2 years, but it's 17% of your income. So that's a pretty significant difference. And so for those 4 reasons, that's why I ultimately chose Flatiron School over Lambda. And let's talk about Flatiron School. So now I had 2 options. It was either I was going to do Flatiron School or I was going to do the Santa Monica College program. And realistically speaking, it wasn't much of a decision. I spent a couple of days looking through it, but given that Santa Monica College, I was gonna have to be in the program for at least 3, maybe even 4 years, and I wasn't gonna be able to work in the field as easily because I was gonna have to go to school 2 years full-time, 15 units per semester. It wasn't much of a decision. I did talk to family, I talked to people in the industry. I wanted to make sure that I looked at every option and considered them equally. And well, I made my decision to go to Flatiron School. I couldn't be happier. And of course, this is a channel for the Flatiron School program. I'm going to be covering it obviously throughout the weeks, and every other week will be a video about Flatiron School. So if you are interested in Flatiron School UX Bootcamp or in UX Bootcamps in general, I can tell you a little bit about how it goes, what to expect. So stay tuned for future videos and I'll have you covered. So I just mentioned 4 reasons that I chose Flatiron School over Lambda School, but I want to talk about some of the reasons on the positive side for Flatiron that I liked the program and why I chose it. So I'm going to look back to my notes. It only took a few days to realize that Flatiron was right for me for a few reasons. The admissions process went really well. There was human interactions throughout that admissions process, which is a video I'll be making very shortly. And the curriculum had been tested by time, as I'd mentioned, with designation. You had a mentor and you get to talk to that mentor every week, which I think is great. You still have that live instruction that I was looking for, although it is only once a week. And the income share agreement, of course, on the flip side, 10% over 17% is a great option. And also I would finish 4 to 8 months quicker with Flatiron School. So the Flatiron program is about 10 months in a week or so. Of course, that can vary if you get behind in the program, but that's about what you can expect to finish the UX program in. The one last thing I wanted to mention is that college programs are great for students that are just getting into the field. They know that they want to do it and they have the time and the money to go through a 4-year program. However, for me, going through a UX bootcamp made the most sense for me just because I was already in a career. I knew I was going to have to career change and I was going to still have to work full time. So I was a little naive into going into the interaction design program pathway in the first place, but I knew I wanted to take action, and sometimes taking action leads you to where you need to be anyways. So I don't regret going that path. I'm still taking classes, as I mentioned, at Santa Monica College. It's actually helping me through this Flatiron School. I won't be doing these classes long term per se. I don't know if I'll be doing them every semester, but at least it gives me additional work that I can take into this program. So just to highlight Flatiron, the reason I chose it was the program would take less time, it helps you build a portfolio, and it helps you get a job. So if you're looking for a way to get into UX and you're in a job, I would recommend looking at UX bootcamps. The one last thing I will say is no matter what path you take, make sure that you're fully committed because none of these are easy. You're gonna have to put in a lot of work, you're gonna have to sacrifice your time, and truly you're gonna have to develop a passion if it's not already there for the industry, because the industry is gonna be changing a lot, as all technology will. So you're gonna have to always be learning, always teach yourself after this program. So think about these things before you get into UX or any other tech field, tech-related job. So next week we'll be covering my first 2 weeks at Flatiron School. If you're interested in the program, as I mentioned before, stay tuned. I'm looking forward to sharing some of the things that I've been working on and giving you a little bit of insight into the program and what you might be able to expect. So with that said, please like and subscribe and leave your questions in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.